We have quite a Super Bowl to discuss. The Kansas City Chiefs now win their second Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, a 38-35 victory. At the ending of this game, Brandon, there was a holding called on James Bradbury in a play of which set the Chiefs up to seal the game, ice the clock down at 8 seconds before the Eagles could even get a chance to go down to the other end and tie the game with a field goal. I want to begin this by asking you, do the referees make a mistake here? Do they potentially sell us of what could have been the best Super Bowl in recent memory?
Um, so here's why I'm gonna go with this, right? Did they make a mistake? 100% they made a mistake. And do you want to dive right into the penalty right away? You want to cover the portions of the game? You want to dive right into the penalty?
I kind of want to dive into the penalty because that's the biggest topic with the game. But
Um,
if you want to go through the entire game too, we can start off that way. Up to you, however you want to do it.
well, you know what? I mean, let's go in linear order. Because I do want to say, because before we get into the negatives, right? I do want to praise this a little. I mean, listen, what if, like John said, what a phenomenal game. Okay, first off, 38-35, incredible game. Um, these two offenses really showed up. The defenses really weren't heard from besides Jalen Hurts making a mistake, not the Kansas City Chiefs really doing anything. They just capitalized on a play. Um, both offensive lines, John, played outstanding. Uh, the Chiefs just a tad higher simply because they allowed 0 sacks, and they were going up against the number one sack team in football, like I've been saying for the past couple of weeks. And I saw even a stat during the Super Bowl. I don't know if you saw it, popped up in a little corner saying the Eagles in the total season had 78 total sacks, behind only two of those great Chicago Bears teams back in the 80s, I believe. And the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, like I've been saying also the past couple weeks, number one pass blocking O line in the entire NFL for the regular season. They were able to shut it out. Uh,
Got a little bit of help too by the turf. That didn't hurt them either.
that turf, I mean, that was a big controversy topic too. I mean, I don't know if you saw the thing going around. Apparently, they spent over 2 years and over $800,000 on that. Was it grass or turf, John?
I believe it was turf.
That's what I'm saying. I believe it was turf too. Some people that I was watching with said it was grass. I thought it was turf. How does that happen, John? A multi-billion-dollar company spent 2 years over almost $1 billion on it. If that's true,
You saw it throughout the entire game. It's hard to plant your
entire
feet
game.
into that, man. And that really did hurt the product of this game because when you
Yes.
have athletes like Hassan Reddick, Chris Jones, some of those defensive players, it gets harder to plant your feet into the ground. And I feel like as an athlete, when you have to think about, okay, how am I going to make this cut or this slide, that really affects your entire psyche. So that did, in spite of this game being great, it really did make the product worse.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to hit on the stats of this game. I mean, if I were to told you, John, just if I were to told you this right before the game, and you didn't know anything else, the Eagles would have went 11 of 18 on third down. They would have went 2 for 2 on fourth down. They would have won the time of possession 24 minutes and 13 seconds to 35 minutes and 47 seconds. If I were to told you that, what do you think you would have said to me?
Did they give up a 50-yard punt return touchdown and a fumble six? That's what
I
that
don't think
is.
that I don't think that's what you would have said to me, but I see what you did there. So I mean, they really did in terms of those stats, did everything they really needed to do to win this game. But they gave up those 2 sacks, weren't for a lot of yards, but when you're going up 0 sacks to 2 sacks, that's a loss of a play, loss of a down, basically.
Mhm.
They had three more penalties, and we'll get to the infamous penalty at the end of the game. Red zone, it was close, 3 for 5 to 4 for 5. But the two biggest to me, John, the Chiefs outran the Philadelphia Eagles. The Chiefs had 26 carries for 158 yards, 6.1 a pop. The Eagles had 32 for 115, but here's the thing, only 3.6 a pop.
And
That's a shocking stat to me.
they went away from it in the second half.
Went away.
And I felt like coming into this matchup, the big key for the Chiefs, we knew Travis Kelce against that defense was going to do his thing. It was Isaiah Pacheco. He's not far out from Philly where he grew up as a kid, and with the style he plays, kind of like Damian Williams back 3 years ago in the Super Bowl, you knew for that Chiefs offense, they were going to need to get production from somewhere else. We talked about maybe a big time play from MVS, but against that strong quarters look that the Eagles defense is going to throw at you, MVS is going to be taken out of the equation. So then you move to Isaiah Pacheco, 15 carries, 76 yards, a huge run in the first half. That sets the tone. And you paired that up with Jerick McKinnon. I mean, he made a heads up play at the end of the game. He could have had his first touchdown, probably the only chance for him to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. That would be an incredible memory. But instead, he slid right before the goal line, let the clock chew out, and that right there is a heads up play. Great teammate, and that allowed the Chiefs to end the game right there.
Yeah, Pacheco was playing real good, and we lamented on it throughout the season that the Eagles' weakness on that defense was their running defense, just like the Cowboys. Their running defense was their weakness, and the Chiefs saw it and they took advantage. Like I said, that Jalen turnover, that one was a major key to this game as well, because you lose a play, you lose a drive, you give up 6 points, 7 points, they kick the extra point. It was just bad. It wasn't the Chiefs didn't do anything, like I said, to cause that play. Jalen tried to change hands, he fumbled the ball, and it was just an unfortunate event. But that turnover is the reason they won the time of possession. Because if you remember, that was in the second quarter, and they basically dominated that second quarter because they had the ball for a little bit, fumbled the ball. Chiefs defense scores, then they get the ball back and they go on a long drive. Mahomes barely touched the ball in the second quarter.
I mean, the Eagles sucked the life out of them. I felt like going to halftime. They really did with a 10-point lead.
With that because you go from the Chiefs high of scoring that touchdown the defense to that defense couldn't get off the field after that. The Eagles defense in the first half was pretty damn good, right? They forced 2 3-and-outs, but in the second half they were terrible, John. They're terrible.
That might be an understatement, BC.
I mean, terrible is pretty bad. So if it's even worse, that's I don't know what other word you would use for that. But the Chiefs have 4 possessions and they cashed in on all of them. They couldn't get off the field. They got no pressure on Mahomes. No sacks. There were a couple of QB hits, but no sacks, man. And from that vaunted defense that we talked about, how many players, how many fresh legs they can throw at you.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked on Orlando Brown's name, John. I think you need to give him a look. He had 0 sacks.
Orlando did step it up after the start to that Jaguars game. I mean,
Yep.
in the regular season, you talked about the Chiefs' offensive line. The tackle position was an issue for them at times, and I had to give them credit. They took their game up a level. They punched above their weight in the postseason, and with that interior look, you've got Thuney, Humphrey, and Trey Smith. I mean, that sets the tone. You know, the offensive line is all about chemistry, and those guys have had so much time to work together. It's not a surprise with them staying healthy. I mean, they did one hell of a job keeping Mahomes upright, because that right there, if Mahomes is getting hit, I mean, we saw him in the first half. That ankle gets re-aggravated, man. I'm thinking to myself, I'm seeing the camera look, zooming at him on the sidelines, agonizing in pain, head falling, snooping to the right on his trainer. I'm like, oh boy. Mahomes is going to need whatever they got, but he's also going to need that offensive line to play their best game. And like you said, man, against all of the players the Eagles have in that front seven, they were the unsung hero of this game.
The air literally got sucked out of that stadium when Mahomes went down right there. The air in the room that I was watching it and got completely sucked out because everybody's just thinking, oh boy, because you're thinking the worst automatically. You shouldn't, but that's what our minds usually go to is the worst.
Playing through a high ankle sprain.
But shout out Mahomes, came out in the second half, fought through it. You want to know who? I don't know why, and I never watched this guy play. I was born in '97, and he played in the '80s and '90s. But I know about him, and I listen to a lot. Veterans of this game. John Elway, Mahomes reminds me of. This kid's a gamer. He's not scared. He's willing to put his body on the line, and I respect the hell out of that. He just reminds me of that John Elway. He's got that grit to him. Where I mean, you know the play, the infamous play of John Elway, the helicopter, where he's like, "Screw it, I'm going for it. This is it."
Kenny
This man
Pickett,
was it,
bro.
and he was in his late 30s at that point too.
Mm-hmm. That's That's a play. Kenny Pickett too. His first college team did a helicopter
You
himself.
always got to bring it to the
Big Ben
Steelers,
as
huh?
well. I'm not joking. Big Ben had it. Kenny Pickett had it. That's what greats do. They put their body
Yep.
in the line.
Um, so yeah, that and then the Chiefs defense I got to speak on. They had two major stops in the second half. They forced a 3-and-out, and then the other one on a 17 play drive, they held the Eagles to 3 points. That's major,
Oh, big time. And in the first
big
half, we
time.
saw the penalties with that group. I mean, Derek Nottie, he had the offsides
Oh,
on fourth down. It
oh,
probably got sucking the life out of a group. When you get the fourth down and you make a critical self error like that, we knew with the Chiefs, in order for them to win the game, it was not only going to have to be Mahomes doing his thing, the offensive line stepping up, but for an Eagles offense that, outside of that one fumble six we discussed, played very good, lights out in the first half.
yeah.
The defense needed to avoid all of that. And all of those young players in the back end and the secondary, they were going to need to step up because the Eagles, man, they were throwing the football a good amount in the second half.
John, you saw going back to the encroachment or lining up offsides. You saw Spags' reaction to that right after, where
Yeah.
he just mouths, "What the?" It's just because you got 2 weeks to prepare. You've gone over this, and it's just like, come on, man. Those are the critical errors you can't make. Um, and I do want to say, you spoke on how great this offense played, minus that fumble six. Minus that fumble six. I mean, even with it though, there's a very good case that to be made that Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes.
I'll be honest with you, Brandon. Mahomes 13 of 14 in the second half. He played a lights out game.
Insane second half, yes.
Monster. I mean, the one incompletion was a throwaway, if memory serves. And he also had that insane run as well, where
Yep.
to outrunning linebackers on one leg. In spite of that, Jalen Hurts did outplay him. I mean,
Yeah.
Hurts in this game, we saw it. He made 6 or 7 high-level throws. There was the one play, 3rd and 8, Madden style. He's zooming around the 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He's able to escape, goes on to his, I guess, his left side, and makes a great throw and a first down. He was sensational, Jalen Hurts. And,
One thing I do want to hit on because it just popped back into my head, the two catches, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. So the first one, Devontae Smith, I instantly when I saw it, I said that's not a catch. Because they showed this camera angle and then they took about 3 minutes before they showed it again, which I absolutely hate about the NFL. They'll show terrible camera angles for about 3 minutes and then they'll show the good one again or for the first time. And I saw it first and everybody else was like, Brand, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, dude, I saw it. I'm not imagining it. I saw the ball turn. I saw it turn. Wait till they show the replay. They finally showed it again and you clearly saw the ball turn. The laces were there and then they turned inside. So that one I instantly knew that was not a catch. The second one, I didn't have the best view on it. I didn't get a best breakdown of it because it was hard to match up the foot to the hand when it was off. So I don't know if you saw that one more clearly, if you have more to speak on that one, the Dallas Goddard.
to be honest with you, I'm blanking on that play, brother.
You don't remember? It was on the sideline where he kind of like bobbled it with one hand. He's going out
Right.
of bounds.
I don't think I got a good view of that either.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
not quite sure.
So I mean, those two. I just know in the room that I was watching in, a lot of people were upset about the second one. But now let's move on to the penalty, John. So you asked me earlier in the show. You said, "Did the refs make a mistake?" They 1000% made a mistake, John. So now I need to know two things before we continue, right, John? For all clarity. Firstly, I need to know, was the flag thrown on the initial contact or the secondary contact? I need to know that. This is for you and the viewers too. If anybody knows which one, I need to know. Because everybody knows what I'm talking about. The initial contact when Juju cuts in, cuts out, right? And it looks like there's a grab. Okay. And then the secondary contact I'm talking about is when Juju is going upfield and Bradbury has his hand on his back. I need to know which flag they threw it on. Which contact?
Secondary.
You think it's the secondary? Because I think a lot of people are saying the initial contact was the reason the flag was thrown.
Yeah, the flag was thrown later as well, too, which what makes me think it was secondary.
Now, so you're jumping ahead, but I like where your head's at, right? So either way, I have a problem with whichever contact you want to talk about. Either way, I got a problem with it. So the initial contact, John, thank you for bringing that point up. If it's the initial contact, the flag was thrown incredibly late. Incredibly late. And if there's one thing that grinds my gears the most in sports, it's late flags or late fouls in basketball. I hate it. In
Mhm.
basketball, I absolutely hate when a
Yeah.
guy takes a shot and the refs blow the whistle after the ball is clearly out and not going in. I despise, because you know what's going through their mind. If that ball goes in, they're not blowing the whistle. I hate that. Same in football. All right. So if it's the initial contact, the flag was thrown late. If it's the secondary contact, that's not a flag. That's ticky tacky at best. He put his hand on his back and was not grabbing him at all in the secondary contact. Okay. Anybody with eyes can see that. Right. And that right there, if it is the secondary contact, John, should not decide the outcome of a game.
A
That
Super
one,
Bowl.
the Super Bowl.
One of the best
Okay.
we've seen.
Because make no mistake about it, that flag decided the game. Because if they don't call that flag, it's an incomplete pass. It's fourth down. The Chiefs kick a field goal. Let's say Bucker makes it, right? They're up 38-35, but guess what? The Eagles still have one timeout and a little over a minute and 30 left.
Mhm.
Instead, they get the ball with 6 seconds left and 0 timeouts.
And let's say Bucker misses a second field goal. He missed one, a 42-yarder in the first half.
Yep.
Now the Eagles are getting the ball pretty close to Chiefs territory, and they just got to get 2 first downs. What do you think happens that if they get 2 or 3 first downs, if Bucker missed that field goal, the Eagles win the Super Bowl, and we don't even see
Yes.
overtime. I was at least hoping to see overtime. And as an NFL fan, you would think the league, look, we saw versus the Bengals, the Chiefs did get a favorable whistle. In this game, the issue that I had was, and you kind of made the point before, so there's a play in the first half, early in the second quarter, where James Bradbury holds on the Juju. He gets away with a great foul. I mean, credit to him. If there's any foul you're going to get away with, it's third down. He's holding on the Juju. I don't know if Juju had like those hand warmer packs on his, torso, but if he did, I mean, James Bradbury may as well just ripped it off Juju's body, and they don't call it. So in the second half, I felt like the referees were looking to really even it out, and that's the bigger problem I have with refereeing. Look, you're going to make mistakes as a ref, and there's going to be holding almost every single penalty. But in the stakes of this game, with two opponents that are trying to get overtime to really drive the NFL products, you would think the referees would let that one go because it was too small of a contact and too high leverage of a moment, and especially considering for the referees, in their minds, I would believe they're thinking, all right, look, we missed that call in the first half. We owe the Chiefs one. When in reality, you didn't owe the Chiefs one because there's many calls you're going to miss throughout the game. That's just human error. And for referees, you're going to make calls with instincts, not thought process and
Well, John, I
consideration.
mean, there's a holding on every play. There's holding on every play. You can ask any NFL player, former or present, there's holding on every single play. And back to that overtime point, isn't it just a little crazy that the first season where the overtime rule is now in effect, we don't get one overtime game in the playoffs? It's just a little crazy to think about. But 100% agree. And back to that point that you made, how the refs didn't call in the first half, right? There's also a thing where you got to call the game the way you've been calling it the entire game. And it was clear from the start that the refs were going to let these guys play through. They were going to let them play football, which I personally believe, I think you agree, and I think any football fan agrees, is the best product for the game. When the refs are not involved and they do not decide the game,
Mm-hmm.
where you let these players go play football. All right. I'm not saying blatant, obvious tugging and all that's face mask, whatever, but you know what I mean. Ticky tacky stuff. Nobody likes that for the game. But back to the initial contact, right? Because I do truly believe that's what majority of people are talking about when they say that it's a flag, right? And I already lamented that it was incredibly late if it's the initial contact and it shouldn't have been thrown. If you're gonna throw the flag, throw the flag. If you're not, swallow it. Swallow it.